All right, so here is question 3 off of the IB exam, and we are looking at a six-sided die weighted that a probability of obtaining a 6 is 7 out of 10. So the first thing you should think about with a probability question is thinking about what the opposite probability is, what the complement is. So if the probability of obtaining a 6 is 7/10, then the probability of obtaining a not 6 is 3/10. And so that's really important approaching these. And so basically, there are two different things happening, 6 or not 6. The die is tossed 5 times. Okay, so here we have the die is tossed 5 times. Find the probability of obtaining at most 3 6s. So there's two ways to approach this. You can approach it directly, where you're looking at the probability of obtaining 0 6s. So let's say a probability of obtaining 0 plus the probability of obtaining 1 plus the probability of obtaining 2 plus the probability of obtaining 3. That's one approach. Or you could say, I'm going to figure out the probability of obtaining 4 6s and the probability of obtaining 5 6s, and recognize that you can subtract that from 1. So just like how the probability of not obtaining a 6 is 1 minus 7/10, the probability of obtaining at most 3 6s is 1 minus the probability of getting 4 6s or 5 6s. Either approach is going to work just fine. In general, the way that you approach this is there are 5 things happening, and it is either a 6 or not a 6 at each of those events. So let's say that I have x equals 0. That would mean that all 5 of the tosses were not 6s. So there's a 3/10 probability of obtaining it, and there are 5 tosses, so we raise that to the 5th power. Now the probability of obtaining 1 6 would be 7/10, you get a 6th, times 3/10, and there are 4 that are not 6s. If one of them was a 6, then there's 4 that are not a 6. However, this doesn't account for the different orders. The 1 6 could be the first, the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth. And so there are actually 5 ways that this thing could happen. So we need to multiply by 5. Then we look at the probability of obtaining 2 6s. So similarly, we have 7/10 raised to the 2nd power, 3/10 raised to the 3rd power, because you'll have 2 6s, 3 not 6s. And then how many ways are there for that to happen? There are 5 choose 2 ways for that to happen, because you're choosing which 2 of the 5 tosses are 6s. And the probability for x equals 3 is 5 choose 3. Let's move this out of the way. 5 choose 3, 7/10 to the 3rd, and 3/10 squared. And so you could do all of that, and really, if you just utilize your calculator, you're going to be okay. And so let's just type all that stuff in. So I have 3/10 to the 5th plus 5 7/10, 3/10 to the 4th plus, and then if you want to do the choose 2, you go to the math menu on your calculator, over to probability, and then option 3, and you can just type in 5 choose 2, and then you've got 7/10 squared, 3/10 to the 3rd, and then plus math, probability, option 3, 5 choose 3, 7/10 to the 3rd, 3/10 squared. And that gives me approximately 0.47. So that's one way to do it. I'll show you the other way to do it, which is at most 3 would be 1 minus the probability of getting 4 6s minus the probability of getting 5 6s. And this takes slightly fewer calculations. If you have 4 sixes, you have 7/10 to the fourth times 3/10 to the first power. There are 5 ways that could happen. And the probability of getting all 5 sixes is just 7/10 to the fifth power. So you can see there's quite a bit less calculation on that, and I should get the same answer. So 1 minus 5 times 7/10 to the fourth times 3/10 minus 7/10 to the fifth, and I get exactly the same thing, 0.47178. Okay. Now, if I look at part B, it's a little bit different. I get the third 6 on the fifth toss. So what that means is that I already had 2 sixes going into the fifth toss. So what you can do is think about what is the probability of getting 2 sixes out of 4 tosses, and then multiply by the probability of getting a 6 on that last toss. So if I had 2 sixes in the first 4 tosses, that means that I have 7/10 squared, 3/10 squared, because those are 4 tosses. 2 are sixes and 2 are not. And there are 4 tosses, and I'm choosing 2 of them to be sixes. And then I'm going to multiply all of that, because this is just the first 4 tosses. I'm going to multiply all of that by 7/10 to account for the fifth toss. And so typing that in, math, probability, option 3, 4 choose 2 times 7/10 to the second power times 3/10 to the second power times 7/10 again gives 0.18522. And that's it for that video. Thanks for watching. Please ask more questions if you need anything.